Hi, it's Pastor Andy, and as we prepare for another Sunday, September the 20th, we are moving into Romans chapter 4. And I know this has been a slow go so far. We've been in Romans now for almost 4 months, and we are 3 full chapters in. Of course, we take our break on Hub Sunday at the end of each month, which we'll do in another week as well. But this is an important book, and it's an important letter. And much of what Paul has said to this point in the letter is directly challenging the understanding of how the Mosaic law applies to the Jew. Now, the letter to the Romans is written to both to all of the church in Rome, which is both Jew and Gentile. But much of what we've seen, especially chapter 2 and a healthy portion of chapter 3, was written with the Jew in mind. And chapter 4 is not going to be much different. But here's the main difference in chapter 4. It was introduced in Romans 3:21. Really, I guess it was introduced in Romans 1:17, and that is the idea of faith. It is the idea that the righteous will live by faith. But what we tend to do, and certainly what the first century Jews did often, was they thought that their righteousness came by works. And that's the argument that Paul has been making now for a couple of chapters. It's the idea that he's been trying to tear down. But at this point, he really hasn't probably had much success, but he's now entering a new phase of his argument. Because again, in Romans 3:22, he says it very, very plainly that it is faith in Jesus Christ that brings about our righteousness. And then in those subsequent verses about our justification as well. Well, if the Jew wasn't ready to believe him at that point, he was about to turn the tables on him. And he was about to say in Romans chapter 4, what we call Romans chapter 4, you may not believe me, but let me give you some examples. And of course, by following the law, the Jews were following the law that was given to the great man, Moses. But he says, let me just bring another couple of characters onto the witness stand for you. How about Abraham? How about David? Now, as I'm going to talk about Monday, Abraham was very revered. We know him to be the father of the nation, but even beyond that, most Jews thought that Abraham lived a perfect life, or as near perfect a life as could be, giving him way too much credit. And I'll point out a couple of those issues that show he wasn't as perfect, even according to the Ten Commandments. And then David, we know David wasn't perfect, and so did the first century Jew. But what Paul does is he paints a picture from these two witnesses to show that, well, if both of them could be considered blessed and be considered righteous in God's eyes, then it wasn't about works because of the timing of Abraham's being credited with righteousness and because of the sin of David. So that's going to be our message this week is, yes, faith is the key. Faith is important. We must work because of our faith, but we cannot work to earn anything from God. Paul has been making this argument clear for quite some time. He's continuing this argument with a new emphasis and a new challenge, a challenge not only to how they understood to apply the law, but their understanding of Scripture itself.